When the system collapses, it won't be luxury or variety that keeps you alive. It'll be strategy. Forget the fantasy of gourmet meals or shelves lined with fancy snacks. In a true survival scenario, choice becomes a liability. Survival isn't about taste, comfort, or options. It's about endurance. Staying alive when supply chains freeze and the grocery aisles turn into empty tunnels of dust. Here's the harsh truth. Most of what people panic buy is dead weight. It fills space, burns through fast, and leaves you weaker than before. Canned sweets, chips, and trendy prepper foods don't fuel survival, they drain it. Real survival isn't about having everything. It's about having what works. That's why we're stripping it down to the essentials. Just 5 foods, 5 powerful staples that can keep you alive, nourished, and going long after everyone else runs out. No gimmicks, no waste, just what actually matters when the world stops feeding you. If you get these 5 right, you'll have calories, nutrition, and strength locked down. Miss even one and you'll feel it. But the 5th one? That's the wild card. The most underestimated food in survival, and the one that might carry you farther than anything else on your shelf. Number 1. Rice. The real prepper's gold. Rice isn't just food, it's the line between those who talk about survival and those who actually live it. You can wave around your tactical gear, post your fancy bug-out setups, or brag about freeze-dried gourmet meals, but if you don't have rice, you're not preparing, you're pretending. The survival industry doesn't want to admit this because rice is too simple, too affordable, and too unstoppable for them to profit from. They can't market it as a miracle meal or charge $200 for a bucket of it, so they distract you with overpriced 72-hour survival kits that barely feed you for a weekend. Here's the truth. Rice is the ultimate survival base. It's cheap, light, versatile, and absolutely packed with energy. A single 50-pound bag, which costs around $25, gives you thousands of real survival calories, not the snack-level sugar hits of fancy prepper foods. If you calculate calories per dollar, rice outperforms almost every so-called emergency food on the market. When disaster hits, the people who laughed at rice will burn through their flashy meal packs in days, while the ones who stocked up will still be eating comfortably weeks later. But rice isn't just fuel, it's foundation. Pair it with beans, and you've got complete protein. Mix it with canned vegetables, and you've got a balanced meal. Even if all you have is oil and salt, rice still keeps you alive. Civilizations were literally built on rice. It's the crop that powered armies, fed empires, and kept millions alive through famine and war. There's a reason entire cultures measure wealth and security by their rice stores. And it's not just physical survival. In a crisis, food is also morale. A warm bowl of rice feels like hope. It tells your brain you're safe, even if the world outside is falling apart. That's something no cold, chalky survival bar can match. But storing it right is key. A sack tossed in a damp pantry won't last long. Real preppers store rice the smart way. Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, and sealed food-grade buckets. Do it right and your rice will last 25. That's a literal lifetime of security for a one-time investment. And here's your wake-up call. Global rice prices are already climbing. Droughts, wars, and export bans are tightening supply chains. The next crisis will double prices overnight, and by then it'll be too late. The shelves will be bare, and you'll be watching the smart ones cook in peace while everyone else fights over scraps. Bottom line, if your prep doesn't start with rice, it's not a prep. Rice isn't filler, it's survival itself. Number 2, beans. The muscle behind survival. If rice is the backbone of survival, beans are the muscle that gives it strength. Without beans, your prep is weak, just empty calories waiting to run out. Together, rice and beans create the most powerful food duo in human history. And here's what most modern preppers don't get. Beans replace meat. That's not hype, that's biology. When combined with rice, they form a complete protein that delivers the same amino acids you'd get from steak or chicken, without worrying about refrigeration or spoilage. Beans are the food of survivors, from ancient civilizations to war-torn modern nations. They've carried humanity through famine, conflict, and collapse for centuries. Yet too many preppers still fill their shelves with chips, protein bars, and sugary cereals, junk that won't keep you alive for a week when the lights go out. Beans, on the other hand, keep you strong, steady, and satisfied. They stabilize blood sugar, build muscle, and store for decades when prepared right. Dry beans are your long-term powerhouse. Stored in mylar with oxygen absorbers, They last 25-30 years easily. That's not just food, that's a legacy stash. And for the people who complain that soaking and cooking beans is too much work, here's the harsh truth. Survival is work. If you can't handle soaking beans, how do you expect to handle a blackout, rationing, or a real collapse? Now, canned beans, they're your short-term champions. Pop the lid, and you've got instant, no-fuel protein. Cold or hot, they're ready. In a blackout, when microwaves are dead and fridges are useless, canned beans mean full meals with zero prep. While others are staring at empty shelves and dead appliances, you're eating real food. And here's where it gets interesting. Beans destroy the economics of the survival industry. A pound of dry beans costs around $1 or $2 and gives you 6-8 hearty serving. That's complete, muscle-building protein for about 20 cents a meal. Compare that to tactical protein buckets that cost hundreds for the same nutritional output. That's why the industry never promotes beans. They're too effective, too affordable, and too simple. Even now, global bean prices are rising. Droughts, war, and export limits have already pushed costs up by 15–20% in some regions. Once another major supply shock hits, beans will vanish from shelves overnight. And when that happens, the same people who mocked beans as boring will be begging or bartering to get them. So don't underestimate them. Beans are non-negotiable. Rice might keep you alive, but rice with beans keeps you strong, stable, and unshakable. Together, they're not just survival food, they're the blueprint for resilience. Miss either one, and your prep falls apart. But nail both, and you've got the foundation of a food system that could outlast civilization itself. Number 3. Oats. The silent workhorse of survival. Oats are the unsung hero of every serious prepper's pantry. The quiet powerhouse that never makes flashy headlines, but outperforms half the survival foods people brag about online. When most folks think of prepping staples, they picture rice, beans, or canned goods. Oats? They get left behind, ignored like an afterthought on the bottom shelf. That's a rookie mistake, because oats might be the single most efficient survival food you can buy. In a crisis, the people who stocked oats will be the ones with steady, no-fuss meals, while others burn half their fuel just trying to make beans edible. Oats don't demand much, just a little hot water, and in minutes you've got warm, energy-packed food. When you're counting every ounce of water, every matchstick, every gram of fuel, that kind of efficiency is survival gold. And if things get truly bad, oats can even be eaten raw. It's not gourmet, but it keeps you alive, and that's what matters. Breakfast is where most preppers fail hard. They load up on cereal, pancake mix, or sugary bars, thinking it's comfort food, but comfort fades fast when the sugar crash hits. Oats don't spike and crash. They sustain. They give you hours of slow-burning energy that keeps your head clear and your body moving. The guy with oats for breakfast is chopping wood and fixing leaks. The guy with Pop-Tarts, he's on the floor wondering why he's out of breath before noon. But oats aren't just a breakfast food, they're survival clay. You can turn them into hot porridge, cold overnight oats, pancakes, oat flour bread, or even soup thickener. Add powdered milk or canned fruit for sweetness. Mix them with broth or canned meat for something savory. Oats adapt to whatever you have, stretching meals without exhausting supplies. And that adaptability kills food fatigue. The psychological burnout that makes people quit eating even when they still have food left. Then there's storage. Rolled oats last about 2 years on a shelf, but if you store them in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, you're looking at a solid decade of stability. Steel-cut oats and whole oat groats can push that to 20–30 years if properly sealed. Package them in smaller vacuum bags so you're not opening your entire stock at once. Simple, effective, efficient. That's how smart preppers think. And the economics? Practically unbeatable. A big tub of oats costs under $5 and delivers weeks of breakfast for pennies. You're paying less than 50 cents for a meal that outlasts and outperforms any $12 survival bar. Oats are real prepper math, maximum fuel, minimum cost. Yet prepping companies don't push them because they're too simple, too cheap, and too effective. Oats are already becoming a hot commodity. Droughts, shipping chaos, and grain export bans have driven up prices more than 15% in some areas. And when global grain markets start to wobble again, and they will, Oats will vanish faster than toilet paper did, and you'll see people wrestling over cereal boxes while you're sitting comfortably with buckets of real, reliable fuel. Bottom line, oats aren't hype, they're survival energy in its purest, most efficient form. Light, fast, and built for endurance. Number 4. Flour or wheat. Civilization in powder form. Flour is more than food, it's the symbol of civilization itself. Every great society, from ancient Egypt to modern cities, was built on its ability to turn grain into bread. And when disaster strikes, that same power, the ability to transform simple ingredients into something filling and familiar, becomes priceless. If your stockpile doesn't include flour or wheat berries, you're not just missing calories, you're missing morale. You can stack all the cans and freeze-dried meals you want, but the person who has flour will always live better. Why? Because flour turns survival into normalcy. It's the bridge between we're struggling and we're managing. When everything else falls apart, kneading dough, flipping a flatbread, or baking a biscuit gives you something most survival foods can't. The feeling of home. And in long-term crises, morale is half the battle. Flour transforms scraps into meal. Beans by themselves are bland. Add flour and you've got tortillas. Oats getting boring? Mix flour and you've got pancakes. Even without yeast or baking powder, a little water and salt can make flatbreads, biscuits, or bannock that fill bellies and lift spirit. It's one of the few survival ingredients that creates real variety from the same small pantry. Now let's talk logistics. Regular flour doesn't store forever. A plain bag tossed in the pantry might last a year, maybe less, before moisture or bugs ruin it. But long-term preppers know how to do it right. Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, and food-grade buckets stretch flour's life to 5 years easily. Want to go even longer? Skip the processed flour and store wheat berries, whole unground wheat kernel. Properly sealed, they'll last 25-30 years. When you need flour, grind what you need. Fresh, nutritious, and immune to spoilage. And here's where it gets real. Flour isn't just a food item. It's a weapon against despair. Imagine everyone else choking down cold beans or powdered mush while you're eating warm bread with your family. That's not luxury, that's leadership. The kind of psychological advantage that keeps you going when others give up. Economically, flour is unbeatable. A 10-pound bag costs $5 to $7, pennies per serving. You can feed an entire family for the price of a single survival meal pouch. Yet wheat prices worldwide are climbing. Droughts, fertilizer shortages, and trade restrictions have already doubled costs in some regions. History proves one thing again and again. When bread runs out, societies riot. The first sign of collapse is always empty bakery shelves. So, if you're building a prepper pantry that actually sustains life, not just prolongs it, flour or wheat belongs front and center. It's survival comfort in the purest form. It turns calories into culture, chaos into calm. Without it, you're scraping by. With it, you're surviving with strength and dignity. Number 5. Peanut butter and fat. The forgotten lifeline. Here's the secret nobody talks about. Without fat, your body will fail. You can live on carbs and protein for a while, but sooner or later, you'll crash. Your brain, your hormones, your immune system, they all need fat to function. That's why peanut butter is the ultimate survival wildcard. It's not a snack, it's not a luxury. It's the difference between surviving and thriving. Peanut butter is pure efficiency, calorie-dense, compact, shelf-stable, and morale-boosting. One spoonful carries nearly 200 calories of balanced fat, protein, and energy. A single jar can fuel you through a full day of physical labor. No stove, no water, no mess. In a world where every calorie counts, that's as close as it gets to edible gold. Carbs fill you up, protein rebuilds you. But fat keeps you alive. History has a name for what happens when people forget that: rabbit starvation. Explorers and survivalists have literally died eating plenty of lean food, but no fat. Peanut butter fixes that fatal flaw. It fills the nutritional void most preppers ignore. And it's versatile. Spread it on hot flat bread, stir it into oatmeal, mix it into beans or sauces for instant flavor and extra calories. It turns plain survival rations into satisfying meals, keeping your body strong and your spirits high. And in a crisis, morale is just as critical as nutrition. Storage, easy. Shelf-stable peanut butter lasts 1 to 2 years, often longer in a cool, dark spot. Rotate jars as you use them, and you'll never run out. Stick with regular commercial brands. They outlast natural versions that separate or spoil faster. If you want variety, almond butter, sunflower butter, or tahini all work too, but none match peanut butter's balance of cost, calories, and storage life. And here's a survival edge most people overlook: barter value. Everyone will have rice or beans. Few will have fat. That scarcity makes peanut butter a powerful trade item. In a collapsed economy, one jar can be worth medicine, batteries, or fuel. It's compact, universally loved, and comforting. The kind of item desperate people will pay anything for. Let's talk numbers. A 16-ounce jar of peanut butter costs $2, $4 and packs about 3,000 calories. That's less than 15 cents per 100 calories. Cheaper than protein bars, cheaper than MREs, and infinitely more practical. But here's the warning: peanut crops are already strained. Droughts, fertilizer costs, and supply issues have driven prices up 10% in the last year alone. When the next global shock hits, peanut butter will be gone from shelves within days. Peanut butter is more than food. It's energy, currency, comfort, and survival all packed into one small jar. It gives you strength when everything else runs out, and hope when meals turn monotonous. Ignore it, and you're leaving a fatal weakness in your prep. Stock it, and you'll have one of the smartest, most compact survival foods on Earth, ready to fuel you when the rest of the world is running on empty. Bonus point 1. Salt. The smallest item that holds the greatest power. If you strip survival down to its raw truth, the human body can go 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, but only so long without salt before things start falling apart. It's not glamorous, it's not calorie-dense, and you'll never see influencers bragging about their salt stash. Yet, this humble mineral is one of the most powerful, multi-purpose survival items you can own. It preserves food, sustains life, heals wounds, and even fuels trade when systems collapse. Here's the hidden reality: most people think of salt as a seasoning. Preppers know it's a lifeline. Sodium regulates every electrical signal in your body: your heartbeat, your muscles, your brain function. Without enough, your body weakens, your thinking clouds, and you spiral toward exhaustion, confusion, and eventually collapse. During long-term crises, that's not a small inconvenience, it's lethal. But salt's true strength isn't just biological, it's strategic. When refrigeration fails, salt turns into ancient technology that suddenly becomes modern again. You can preserve meat, fish, and vegetables without electricity by curing or pickling. Salt draws moisture out of food, killing bacteria before it spreads. That means you can stretch meat and fish supplies from days to months. It's how armies marched across continents before fridges existed, and how preppers can still eat clean long after the grid dies. Think beyond the kitchen. Salt also purifies and heals. A pinch in boiling water can disinfect wounds. A saline rinse clears sinus infections. Gargling with salt water soothes sore throats and kills bacteria. In a world where pharmacies are looted and antibiotics vanish, that makes salt not just useful, but vital. Then there's the barter value. In a prolonged collapse, salt becomes currency. History proves it. Roman soldiers were paid in salt, hence the word salary. Civilizations have gone to war over it. When the modern supply chain collapses, salt will vanish from store shelves overnight because it's bulky, heavy, and low profit. Retailers don't store much. Those who have it will control trade. Imagine this. Your neighbor offers you canned beans for a handful of salt. That's how it plays out when society hits rock bottom. Storage is laughably easy. Pure salt doesn't expire. Keep it dry, sealed, and safe from moisture, and it'll last indefinitely. You can store years' worth in a single plastic bucket for a few dollars. Buy bulk 50-pound bags of plain salt, non-iodized if you plan to use it for curing. Divide it into smaller airtight containers to prevent clumping. If you can, add iodized salt too. Iodine supports thyroid function and helps prevent goiter, a silent problem that can resurface when fresh foods disappear. Salt is the perfect example of what real prepping looks like. Low cost, high utility, infinite shelf life, and massive survival leverage. Most people think prepping means expensive freeze-dried meals or high-tech gadgets. Real preppers think like engineers, and salt is one of their oldest and smartest tools. It's not flashy, but when everything else runs out, salt quietly holds the line between survival and starvation. Bonus point 2, honey, nature's eternal superfood. Honey isn't just sweet, it's eternal. Archaeologists have found pots of honey in Egyptian tombs that are over 3,000 years old. Still edible, still golden, still perfect. That should tell you everything you need to know about why honey deserves a place in your survival stockpile. It's one of the few foods that never spoils. That's not a figure of speech, it literally lasts forever. In a survival context, honey is the closest thing to bottled sunlight. It delivers quick, clean energy, acts as a natural medicine, and doubles as a long-term morale booster when the world turns gray. When stress levels rise and food becomes monotonous, a spoonful of honey does more than feed you. It restores something deeper, comfort. Let's start with energy. Honey is a perfect balance of glucose and fructose, natural sugars that absorb quickly and fuel both the brain and muscles. In a high-stress, high-exertion environment, whether you're chopping wood, hiking for supplies, or defending your homestead, that burst of clean energy can mean the difference between fatigue and focus. Unlike processed sugar, honey contains trace minerals, enzymes, and antioxidants that support recovery and immunity, things you desperately need when sleep, nutrition, and hygiene are compromised. Now the medicinal side, this is where honey truly shines. It's antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral. Apply it to cuts or burns, and it acts like a natural antibiotic, sealing wounds and preventing infection. In a grid-down scenario where medical care is gone, that's priceless. Mix it with warm water and lemon, and you've got a natural cough suppressant that rivals over-the-counter medicine. Stir it into tea and you boost both flavor and immunity. But honey isn't just functional, it's morale fuel. Sweetness is comfort, and in survival situations, mental resilience is everything. A teaspoon of honey turns bitter oatmeal into a treat, bland tea into relief, and hard days into something bearable. When you're living off basic staples like rice, beans, and oats, even small luxuries like honey make a massive psychological difference. And let's talk longevity. Honey never expires because its composition kills bacteria before they can grow. Keep it sealed in glass or food-grade plastic, and it'll outlive you. If it crystallizes, no problem. That's natural. Just warm the jar gently in hot water and it turns smooth again. For bulk storage, buy raw or pure honey, not honey blends, which are cut with syrup. A gallon jug stored in a cool, dry place can last generations. Then there's the barter advantage. When sugar and comfort foods disappear from the market, honey becomes luxury currency. One jar can buy more than you'd expect. It's medicine, dessert, and energy all in one. You can trade it for coffee, fuel, ammo, or even goodwill when tension rises. In a collapsed society, people crave small pleasures, and those who can provide them gain influence. Here's the kicker. Unlike sugar, honey supports sustainable living. If you can learn basic beekeeping, you don't just own a food source. You own a renewable one. Bees pollinate your garden, produce wax for candles and waterproofing, and give you honey every year. You're not just surviving, you're building independence. So while others hoard chocolate and soda, the prepper who stocks honey holds a quiet, timeless advantage. It's one of nature's most stable, versatile, and morale-boosting foods. A jar of honey isn't a luxury in crisis. It's proof that survival can still taste like hope. Bonus point 3. Vitamin C and multivitamins, the hidden nutrient shield. Here's something most preppers never think about until it's too late. Nutrition collapse. You can have a bunker full of rice, beans, flour, and oats, but if that's all you eat for months, your body will start breaking down from the inside. Micronutrient deficiencies don't make headlines, but they kill quietly, first your energy, then your immunity, and finally your willpower. When fresh produce vanishes, vitamins become survival insurance. They don't add calories, but they prevent the slow, invisible starvation that malnutrition causes. Especially vitamin C, the one nutrient your body cannot store or produce. Go long enough without it, and you get scurvy, bleeding gums, open sores, fatigue, and a broken immune system. It's not a pirate's disease anymore, it's a prepper's nightmare. In survival terms, multivitamins are your nutritional firewall, a lightweight, cheap, and long-lasting way to keep your body running at full capacity when variety is gone. Think about it, your 5 core foods cover calories, carbs, protein, and fat, but vitamins and minerals, that's where long-term survival breaks. Your heart, nerves, bones, and immune system all depend on trace nutrients: magnesium, zinc, potassium, B-complex, and more. Without them, you're a walking malfunction waiting to happen. The fix is simple. Stockpile high-quality multivitamins and vitamin C supplements. They're compact, inexpensive, and have a shelf life of 2 to 3 years minimum. Store them in cool, dry places. Rotate yearly, and you'll never have to worry about deficiency. Even expired vitamins lose potency gradually. They don't suddenly become harmful, so you can safely stretch them longer in emergencies. But this isn't just about health, it's about endurance. The longer the crisis lasts, the more your body becomes your greatest asset. Fatigue, muscle cramps, mood swings, and weakened immunity aren't just inconveniences, they're death traps in a survival setting. A few tablets a day can mean the difference between functioning and failing. If you want to go next level, add powdered greens or dehydrated vegetables to your stash. They're light, nutrient-dense, and can turn plain rice or oats into balanced meals. Vitamin C powders, ascorbic acid are cheap and last indefinitely when sealed. A teaspoon mixed into water keeps your immune system strong when stress and poor diet would otherwise destroy it. And don't underestimate morale again. Feeling physically healthy makes you mentally strong. The collapse survivor who's weak, pale, and sickly loses hope fast. The one who still feels capable keeps moving, thinking and adapting. Vitamins don't just feed the body, they protect the mind. Most preppers overlook this category because it's not sexy. You can't show off a bottle of vitamin C like a tactical knife or generator. But when everyone else is sluggish, coughing, and desperate for fresh food, you'll be sharp, strong, and steady. That's not luck, that's foresight. Let's end this with perspective. Your pantry can feed your stomach, but your vitamins keep your system running. Together, they make survival sustainable, not just possible. In a world where the smallest weaknesses can spiral into disaster, a handful of pills might be the cheapest, smartest prep you ever made.